to discuss the importance of sources, to understand various kinds of sources, to examine official and unofficial sources, to scrutinize the role of whistleblowers, to discuss the confidentiality factor, to know the take of Press Council of India and Reuters on sources. News is happening all the time. People are born or dying or killed, banks are robbed, buildings and bridges are constructed or demolished, companies are making profits or suffering losses, crooks are plotting to loot people, power is being abused, courts are sending people to jails or freeing them, new viruses are germinating out of nowhere, scientists are discovering new drugs, sports leagues are conducted and films are made. The list goes on and on. A journalist alone can't cover all these happenings, so he or she needs other ways of getting the information on all these hundreds, maybe lakhs of events we cannot witness ourselves. When someone or something provides you with information, we call them a source. Anything that fetches news information for a period of time is said to be a news source. Sources can be a person or a document. The success of a journalist depends on the number of sources he would tap before writing a story. More sources means more information, and more information makes your story comprehensive and meaningful. As we discussed, accuracy is the heart of good journalism, and journalists should deal with reliable facts. Hence, it is important that the sources you use for writing stories can give you accurate information about what happened or what was said. As there are lots of different news events, so there are many different sources of information. Broadly, there are 4 kinds of sources: 1, primary sources; 2, secondary sources; 3, official sources; and 4, unofficial sources. Most of the time, primary sources are official sources and secondary sources act as unofficial sources. As the name indicates, the first-hand information provider is the primary source. These sources are as close as possible to the origin of the information. In a road accident case, the injured are your primary sources because they are the victims and they can tell you what exactly happened. No other person can give you more accurate details than the primary sources. This source is someone at the center of the event or issue. It might be a man who fell 1000 meters from an aircraft and lived to tell the tale, or a union leader who is leading wage negotiations, and so on. Every source other than the primary source is a secondary source. Secondary sources are those people who do not make the news but who pass the information. For example, in a burglary case, the primary source is the victim and the secondary sources are victim's friends, relatives and police officers. Now let us discuss about official and unofficial sources. Journalists need to work with both official and unofficial sources for their stories. The field experience suggests that both these categories are very important for journalists. Sometimes official sources may not be in a position to divulge a complete picture due to government protocols or service rules forcing journalists to rely on unofficial sources. Most of the time, the official sources always try to conceal information due to various reasons. Nevertheless, journalists should quote the official sources in the news stories to get credibility to the news. If officials don't want it to be quoted, you may mention the same in the story. Unofficial sources usually give us highly valuable information. Almost all scams were unearthed because of the sensitive and secret information provided by the unofficial sources. Official sources: press notes, officers or PROs, RTI designated officers, ready reckoners, government orders, gazettes, inscriptions, newspaper clippings, TV radio conversations, files, letters, books, websites, blogs, YouTube, and other social media material. The most common way of information sharing by governments, firms, business establishments, and individuals is an official document called press release. They present their version or their side of the story in the press release for public consumption. Press release is the safest bet for journalists. It provides basic information to do a news story. However, merely relying on the material provided in the press release is considered as lazy journalism. Journalists should check the facts and do some legwork before making use of the material provided by the press release. Additional information may be sought to make the story tight and comprehensive. The second type of official source is public relations officers. PROs are trained professionals who can assist journalists with relevant information. All ministries, departments, corporates, NGOs, and other establishments appoint PROs to deal with journalists. PROs who are experts in media relations would come in handy for journalists all the time. All corporates having now communication wing to deal with internal and external public. The Corpcom wing is the contact point for journalists. Some organizations may not be in a position to appoint PROs due to financial constraints. In such case, journalists can rely on the officials concerned. In crime reporting, you may have a PRO at the district level. Then the local circle inspector or sub inspector becomes your primary source locally. The first information report can also be identified as the official source if you can acquire a copy of it. However, thanks to the Right to Information Act 2005, all government officers have designated an official to share information with general public, including journalists. A notice is kept at the entrance of the government offices indicating the list of RTI designated officials. The documents that are collected through RTI Act can also be called as official sources. Press releases, officials, PROs, and RTI designated officials are the first class official sources. Subject experts, academicians, scientists, founders of NGOs, and civil groups heads are also readily available to spell out their opinion on any given subject. They are like ready reckoners for journalists. Gazettes can also serve as official sources. Gazette is an official journal or document containing public notices, appointments, etc. Material gathered from official website of the organizations also fall under official sources category. Speeches or interviews shown on television and radio can also be used as an official source. Let us imagine that an important minister from your state visits another country. A foreign TV channel telecasts it live. You can make a story out of it by quoting the name of the TV channel. Files, letter correspondence, and newspaper clippings are good sources to write something related to the past. A published interview of a leader of the freedom struggle you found in an old library can be turned into a news story if it has some relevance to the present day context. Similarly, you can quote from books. The information and communication technologies have in fact increased the scope of official sources. Since almost all important leaders, key officials, and other celebrities are very active on the social media, it is very easy to get their quotes for our stories. A blog post by these celebrities can be a qualified official source for journalists. Regular blog posts of the renowned film actor Amitabh Bachchan and highly valuable information provided by the Microsoft founder Bill Gates in the form of notes on social media platforms are of great news value. Material drawn from tweets, Facebook pages, LinkedIn platforms, and YouTube channels can also be used as official sources without much effort. However, journalists should be careful about two things. Number one, you should check the veracity of the social media channels of these dignitaries. Make sure that they are their official sites. It is noticed that cyber criminals hack the social media accounts of these prominent personalities as part of a conspiracy. In a bid to damage the reputation of the leaders, rivals may use tech-savvy criminals to hack the accounts. Journalists should not get into this trap. It is always better to cross-check the information you gathered through social media sites with the persons concerned. If you find an abnormality or exaggeration or sensational comment on these platforms, don't forget to take a screenshot before checking up with the dignitary or his PR staff. Quoting a person from his personal messaging tools like WhatsApp or Telegram may not be a good idea. Recorded information may be used with due diligence. Experienced boss or the legal staff in your organization may be consulted for clarification or guidance in dealing with the information you gathered in electronic form. It is better to suspect the authenticity of such material because tapes are doctored and old videos are projected as new clips on social media. The second caution is attribution. We shouldn't go blindly by the versions we get through social media. To be on the safe side, attribute the information you are gathering for a news story. Mention the source of information without fail. In the name of a leader or other dignitary, some video clips or press releases go viral. Journalists should be very careful while dealing with such material. Using such information without cross-checking is suicidal. If you come across such suspected material, don't be in a hurry to telecast or publish them. Cross-checking is the mantra in journalism. Unofficial sources. Other reporters or media colleagues, disgruntled elements, concerned citizens, whistleblowers, pamphlets, anonymous letters. These unofficial sources are very essential for journalists. Pamphlets sometimes gets us good basic facts about individuals or organizations. It gives an idea to go further. Anonymous letters are sent by unknown people who don't want to be identified. They too can provide basic information and some clues. Maoists used to frequently send letters to journalists on the party letterhead. Many times they made news. There are 4 very important unofficial sources we can tap. They are: first, other reporters and media colleagues. Every sincere journalist comes across information every day in and day out. He or she may not be in a position to publish the information because of various reasons. For example, a journalist gathers some highly confidential documents against the land dealings of a local leader. The leader in question happens to be the close family member of his newspaper owner. Not to get into trouble, the reporter may wish to share the documents with his colleagues like you, though you are working in a rival newspaper. It is welcome as long as the supplier of the document is doing so without any malified intention. Sometimes a tip-off given by a colleague or the member of the journalistic fraternity would lead to a good story. Journalists should not reject such information. However, they should sense the real intention and the authenticity of the information before proceeding further. Second, disgruntled elements. Disgruntled souls are omnipresent. 1 or 2 persons in every establishment would talk and act against their bosses and the establishment, maybe due to the denial of a promotion or an aborted chance to progress in the career. They wait for a chance to expose the boss with evidence. This kind of people are the best sources for journalists. They are capable of providing unbelievable evidence or proofs to expose black sheep. For example, a couple of confidants of a local MP are not happy with their leader because he is not helping them financially. The duo would gang up to collect evidence of MP's involvement in a land deal. They deliberately leak the information to the selected journalists. If the information passed the cross-checking test, we can go ahead with the story. However, a lot of precautionary measures need to be taken while dealing with such cases. Third, concerned citizens. These categories of people are patriotic, selfless and citizen oriented. They can't tolerate lethargic officials, corrupt politicians or disorderly citizens. They are always ready to go an extra mile to contribute their might for the sake of the society. They keep an eye on unlawful activities of officials and raise an alarm against them. These keen observers can explain us the chinks in the system while shedding light on good Samaritans. The concerned citizens are, most of them are elderly persons. Journalists can make use of these citizens to get inside information. Mind you, they are all well connected with various sections of the society and they enjoy good reputation among officials thanks to their spotless character. Journalists can immensely get benefited by befriending concerned citizens. However, we need to spend a lot of time and energy to nurture such sources. Fourth, whistleblowers. Whistleblower is a person who tells the public or someone in authority about alleged dishonest or illegal activities or misconduct occurring in a government department or a public or private organization or a company. The alleged misconduct may be a violation of a law, rule, regulation, and or a direct threat to public interest such as fraud, health, safety violations, and corruption. Whistleblowers may make their allegations internally, for example, to their people within the organization, or externally to regulators, law enforcement agencies, to the media. These kind of unofficial sources who usually operate from behind the scenes are capable of getting highly classified documents for journalists. Every journalist should know about the Whistleblowers Protection Act 2011, renamed as Whistleblowers Protection Act 2014, which provides a mechanism to investigate alleged corruption and misuse of power by public servant and also protect anyone who expose alleged wrongdoing in government bodies, projects, and offices. The government had to bring the act following the public demand in the wake of a brutal killing of a government official, Sachendra Kumar Dubey. A meritorious engineer, Dubey was a project director at the National Highway Authority of India. He was murdered in Gaya, Bihar on 27 November 2003 after fighting corruption in the Golden Quadrilateral, the highway construction project. Sensing the possibility of high-level corruption within the National Highway Authority of India, Dubey had written directly to the then Prime Minister detailing the financial and contractual irregularities in the project. Those who resorted to corruption killed Dubey, the greatest whistleblower. Civil society cried foul and demanded for an act to protect whistleblowers. A bill on this was passed by the Lok Sabha on 27 December 2011 and Rajya Sabha on February 2014. Finally, it got the President of India's assent on 9 May 2014. Journalists should aware of the contents of this important act. Another world famous scam that was exposed by a top ranking whistleblower with the help of reporters in 1970s is known as Watergate scandal. In 1972, the Washington Post reporters Bob Woodward and Bernstein were in touch with a source pseudonymed as Deep Throat to get secret information. The information was about the then US President Richard Nixon's involvement in a corruption case. Thanks to the reliable information provided by Deep Throat, Nixon had to quit his office following series of explosive articles in the Washington Post. For more than 30 years, the identity of Deep Throat was one of the biggest mysteries of American politics and journalism and the source of much public curiosity and speculation. Woodward and Bernstein insisted they would not reveal his identity until he died or consented to have his identity revealed. On May 31, 2005, Vanity Fair magazine revealed to the world that Deep Throat was the former Federal Bureau of Investigation Associate Director Mark Felt. The Watergate scandal teaches journalists as to how sacrosanct the protection of the identity of our sources. Unofficial sources we have discussed should be protected with utmost care. Their life will be in danger if journalists reveal their identity. The world famous media house Reuters formed a set of rules on sourcing for its reporters. A named source is always preferable to an unnamed source. It felt that the anonymous sources are the weakest sources. Reuters says that we should press our sources to go on the record. Reuters uses unnamed sources when they provide information of market or public interest that is not available on the record. When talking to sources, always make sure the ground rules are clear. Take notes and record interviews, it says. Reuters strongly recommends to cross-check information wherever possible. Two or more sources are better than one. In assessing information from unnamed sources, weigh the source's track record, position and motive. Use your common sense. If it sounds wrong, check further. Talk to sources on all sides of a deal, dispute, negotiation or conflict, Reuters suggests. The Press Council of India also issues various precautions to journalists in dealing with sources. If information is received from a confidential source, the confidence should be respected, it says. The journalist cannot be compelled by the Press Council to disclose such sources. Information is lethal. It has tremendous power. The information you receive from your source may ruin the business or career of dishonest persons. They may have to go behind bars due to the information you published or broadcast. That is the reason protection of sources is journalists' prime responsibility. The words confidence and confidentiality are based on the Latin word for trust. When you are given information in confidence, this usually means that you promise that you will not tell anyone else where you got it from. Your confidential informant trusts you to keep their identity secret. Your sources usually ask for confidentiality because they don't want to get into the risk of having shared the information. When you don't want to disclose the identity of your sources, you can attribute the collected information to such words: reliable sources, informed sources, highly placed sources, people associated with this, persons who are involved in this issue, anonymous sources, etc. Pleaded for anonymity or sought for anonymity are also used by some journalists. Though these kind of phrases are useful to protect the source, journalists should not make it a habit to cook something and attribute that information to these anonymous sources. According to the news manual, confidentiality of source is central to the ethics of journalism. If you name a source who has given you information in confidence, you betray their trust, and as we know that trust is the heart of journalism. Once a word goes around that as a journalist you don't protect the confidentiality of sources, nobody would believe you. People will never share confidential information again. Sincere journalists are willing to go to jail instead of revealing their sources. I quote news manual's take on this issue here. I quote, "In many countries, courts, tribunals, parliamentary committees and royal commissions can order you to reveal your sources of information if they think that this will help them in the administration of justice. If you fail to obey their orders, you may be fined or imprisoned, or both, for contempt. In some cases, journalists have been jailed for lengthy terms, to be released only when they purge their contempt by revealing the information first demanded by the court. It is more common for journalists to be released from their promise of confidentiality when the source himself comes forward to give his identity." Quotes end. Another important thumb rule in journalism is don't pay money to your sources. However, some tabloids don't mind paying money. The PCI deals with confidentiality component in its guidelines to journalists. It says, I quote, "As a journalist, you can always decline to accept information from a source unless they agree to be identified. However, once you have made the promise not to identify them in your story, you must never break your word. If you do, people will never talk to you again." This introduces us to the idea of confidentiality, one of the most important areas of journalism ethics, unquote. Off the record information. Official sources divulge valuable information in the name of off the record information. It means that the source doesn't want to be quoted in your story and you are requested against revealing their names to anyone. I reiterate that journalists should strictly adhere to such a promise. It is an integral part of journalistic ethics. Sources is a very important topic in journalism. In this lesson, we have learned that the success of a journalist mainly depends on the number of reliable contacts he or she can build up. Cultivating and grooming sources is an art that is essential for media persons. The unofficial sources, especially concerned citizens and whistleblowers, are valuable assets for journalists to break big stories. We have also learnt that maintaining confidentiality of the sources is the most important ethical aspect in the profession of journalism.